When I was first asked to come and speak tonight, I was asked to present some words of advice to parents of middle schoolers. And I said I flunked that lesson. I wouldn't be here if I had done everything correctly. So things were revised a little bit, and I was asked just to come and tell my story. So that's what I'm going to do. 2 years ago today, our son was finishing his 5th day of a month-long stay in rehab. In some ways, it seems like a long time ago, but as I've spent time thinking about this talk, I've been churning up emotions and memories that seem very fresh. You're middle school parents, and if you don't have older children, this all may seem very new and a bit scary. We recently found out that our son smoked weed for the first time in the 7th grade. He was curious, and we were clueless. I thought we had a normal family, 2 parents, jobs. I even worked part-time so I could be home more with the kids. We had great friends and neighbors. We're active in our church. We ate dinner together every night as a family. Our son was on the basketball team in the middle school and his freshman year at OPRF. He taught Sunday school. He made the honor roll. Things began to spiral down his junior year. We began to suspect that he might be dabbling with pot. We could mostly smell it on him. But the first concrete evidence we had was a pipe I found in a shoebox in his closet. Was I snooping when I found it? Of course. I never had any qualms about searching and snooping, even when I knew that I might discover something that could rock my world. When we confronted him with the pipe, he told us it was a friend's. Yeah. At first we thought we could handle this ourselves. After all, we'd both been through high school, my husband and I, and had some experience with this sort of dabbling. We sought advice, we lined up counseling, and we met with a group of parents in our church who were having similar concerns. But we soon realized that nothing was helping and the situation was not improving. You think things can't get worse, but they do. Money started to disappear, his grades tanked, and the automated calls from the high school attendance office came daily. The car smelled like smoke all the time, and we argued constantly. We worried about him driving into the west side of Chicago to buy weed, only to find out that it was easier, cheaper, and higher quality in the halls of OPRF. We felt we were losing our son, and we knew that physically and emotionally we couldn't continue to live this way. One good thing during this time is that my husband and I were on the same page. We both agreed we needed to take action. This wasn't going to get better on its own. So through friends at church who had been through a similar experience, we learned about and chose a treatment center in Arlington Heights and began to plan our strategy, knowing that our son would not willingly agree to go. We made an intake appointment for a Monday morning, and we got him into the car under the pretense of giving him a ride to school. We weren't sure what would happen at the appointment, but I had packed a suitcase and stowed it in the trunk. We even went so far as to decide to drive our two-door car so that he couldn't bolt at a stoplight when he realized what was happening. As soon as he figured out that we weren't headed towards school, we did tell him that we were going to have him evaluated, and he immediately knew that that meant rehab. He was incredulous and angry, and when we arrived at the treatment center, he refused to get out of the car. So the intake counselor, who had had much experience with this sort of behavior, came out and gently talked to him and said, "The gig is up," and he got out and went inside. After 3 or 4 hours of interviews with him and us, drug testing and evaluation, we were told that he qualified for inpatient care. That day, he pulled out every trick he had. He cried, he promised, he lied, and he bargained. He told us that he'd been in the waiting room with a kid who was there for heroin and that all he had was a little problem with weed. But because he was 17, The decision to admit him was ultimately ours, and my husband and I agreed that he would stay. Again, he was incredulous and so angry. He refused to say goodbye when we left. Leaving him that day was excruciating. Even though we knew we were doing the right thing, I was terribly sad and scared, but also relieved. For the next 28 days, we made many trips out to Arlington Heights for counseling, group, and family sessions with our son. He was actually pretty happy to see us the first time, 5 days into his stay. For the first couple of weeks, we continued to feel relieved that he was safe and getting help, and we all learned a lot about addiction. He quickly seemed to accept the things he was learning and worked hard to learn ways to stay sober. I believe in my heart that he had not liked what his life had become any more than we did. While he was learning, we were also busy completely cleaning and redecorating his room, wanting to give him a fresh start. We canceled his cell phone number and got him a new one, even though it would be months before he'd earn back the right to get his phone. The time he was in rehab went very quickly, and we soon realized that we needed to figure out what was going to happen after he got out. His counselor in rehab strongly recommended that he not come back to Oak Park. Too many triggers and temptations here. I knew he was making real progress when he agreed with that assessment. My parents, who are retired and live in Bloomington, Indiana, offered to have him come live with them and finish out the school year there. The process of getting him into rehab was nothing compared to what we went through after he was released. We had to withdraw him from OPRF, transfer guardianship, establish residency, and enroll him in a school where he knew no one, with only 6 weeks left in the school year. We also needed to find an IOP for him in Bloomington, which is an intensive outpatient program, so he could continue his recovery. He had no phone, no car, no friends, and my parents pretty much around 24/7, but he seemed to appreciate the structure. And even though I knew we were leaving him in a safe place, this was just another excruciating separation. The whole situation was just plain sad. He came back to Oak Park soon after the school year ended, and we enrolled him in an IOP in Elmhurst. So again, his days were busy and structured. My husband is a teacher, so he was off for the summer and around. Slowly, he began to regain privileges, but this was a nervous time for us all, and we kept a pretty tight rein on things. He re-entered OPRF for his senior year and became involved in a group that Margot Bristow, the substance abuse counselor there, runs. And he got involved in a leadership role with Snowball, an anti-drug program. We had a contract in place with him when he left rehab that clearly spelled out expectations, which was helpful, and he was not allowed to see his old using friends. The good news is that our son graduated from OPRF with honors and is now a freshman in college. Our marriage grew stronger. Our daughter, who was a junior in high school, lived through this hell and seems to have made the decision to be drug-free. And our relationship with our son is 100 times better than it was. The bad news is that the road has been occasionally bumpy. Trust has not completely been reestablished, and I'm not sure it ever will be. I often feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know that I have any great advice for you except to keep your eyes open, ask for help, and fight for your kids. I know we didn't do everything right, but once we realized that our son's drug use was negatively affecting every aspect of our lives and that we couldn't handle it ourselves, we moved quickly. If you begin to suspect drug use, reach out for help. It's so easy just to say to yourself, this is normal, curious behavior, and I'm sure some parents often feel a sense of embarrassment or shame. Be a parent and get over that. We sought the advice of people in our church who had been through a similar situation and were very open about what they had experienced. In turn, we've not hesitated to go public with our story because we know we have information and experiences that may be helpful to others. There's no reason anyone has to go through this alone. We had tremendous support from our family, our church, and our friends. Treatment and recovery is hard, time-consuming work for everyone, but support and encouragement is there for the asking. Thank you.